when I kind of first found out when he said that, my first reaction was, well, I don't want to live. And I think my accident isn't the tragedy. That is the tragedy. Thinking that and that perspective. I had a spinal cord injury in 2000 at the C5-6 level, so I'm tetraplegic. And that completely changed my perspective on life. Things can inevitably go wrong. The amount of times that, things have gone wrong for me. But I think that's where tapping into the resilience happens. You just have to be as prepared as you can be before you go, and then leave it up to fate. If you tap into your resilience and want for joy, engagement, connection, culture, then go for it. The highs will always be the highs. The lows will always be the lows, regardless of what country you're in.
Welcome to the Back Up and Thriving Accessible Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Sophie Elwes, and in this series I'll be interviewing a range of guests who are all affected by spinal cord injury. They'll be sharing their travel stories, experiences, and some fabulous advice. Our hope is that listeners will realise that travelling after spinal cord injury is not only possible, but that it can be life-changing too. Kyla, great to see you. How are you doing?
Oh, there have been better days, but I am just really happy to be here. And I love that we both have synchronized hands holding mugs of something warm.
I know. So good. What are you drinking? I'm on the green tea, matcha green tea.
Oh, that is antioxidant heaven. I am on the ginger, fresh ginger, fresh lemon, and I have a sprig of rosemary from my garden.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Love that. Could go on a mega tangent right there.
Yeah.
But let's get stuck in. Thank you so much for coming on the Backup podcast. I know that a lot of people are going to be really, really excited to hear about you and your story and your perspective on life. So to start with, could you introduce yourself for those who may not be so familiar with who you are, and maybe tell us about kind of how your journey intersects with Backup, if you would.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I always feel like I have a mini existential crisis when I'm introducing myself, because it's a bit like, how do you put everything into one sentence? But I'll try, and it will definitely be over one sentence. So I am an actor, producer, writer, and I co-created and co-wrote the BBC series We Might Regret This, and starred in it as the lead Freya. And I suppose my journey intersects with Backup because I had a spinal cord injury in 2000 at the C5-6 level, so I'm tetraplegic. And that completely changed my perspective on life, as you will know, and so many people listening will know and relate to, that it's kind of, I have a before and after the accident, and so it and I feel like I'm a better person because of it.
Yeah. I'd love to go into more detail about that. Where were you at in your life when you had your injury?
So I was 15, and I felt like I was on the brink of independence. Like, I lived in Canada, that's where I grew up, and I was about to learn how to drive. I was, feeling really like in my power for the first kind of time as a young person. And then I had my accident, and life kind of flipped upside down. And everything that I thought I knew about the world was different.
Yeah.
No, in a good way. In a good way. Yeah.
So I mean, you say in a good way. I can imagine at the time it didn't feel it was difficult to see how that might turn out kind of good. What do you think were the biggest challenges at the time of having your injury for you?
I think the biggest challenges were me not thinking that I knew any disabled people. I think for me, disabled equaled wheelchair user, and that was it. And I'd only met one wheelchair user before and had kind of gone, oh my God, what do I do? What do I say? Do I mention it? Do I not mention it? The same thing that people do with me now, I'm sure. Um, so I think that was a challenge. I think another challenge was the medical perspective on me, and I suppose like what in England we call bedside manner of doctors. And I remember this one doctor came in when my mum had been kind of rushed to ICU where I was. My mum came in and she was kind of expecting to see someone quite comatose in bed. And I was like sitting up in bed and I went, I can't believe I broke my neck. And she was just like, okay, hi,
Is that the first time she saw you?
That was the first time that she saw me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So right away, I think I was kind of very much like, what's happened? I'm going to be skiing in 3 months for sure. That's when like the skiing season starts. Like I'm going to be doing, da da da. Oh, this is such an inconvenience kind of a thing. And then a doctor came in and said to us, in this very kind of tragic way, your daughter will never walk again. And that to me was, I feel like my first challenge. And because I feel like if the doctor had come in and say, look, you may not have the life that you thought you were going to have, but it's going to be magnificent. And to me, that is what I want to bring into this world. That's my motivation for change. That is my motivation for my series and in all of the work that I want to do. I want everyone to have that perspective.
Love that. Love that so much. It really shows, doesn't it? In those early stages, it's so incredibly formative, and that the people that you have those conversations with can hold you back for some people, right?
Absolutely. Undoubtedly. Yeah, it did for me. I mean, I think this there should be a trigger warning here, but when I kind of first found out when he said that, my first reaction was, well, I don't want to live. And I think that is my accident isn't the tragedy. That is the tragedy. Thinking that and that perspective that I had, because I hadn't had any role models. I hadn't known anyone who I thought was disabled. I hadn't had an awareness of all of the ways that your life opens up. And yes, of course there are challenges, and yes, of course there are difficulties, but a lot of that for me exists in the outside world and in people's perception of me.
Mm-hmm.
That's much more challenging than, not being able to walk.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. How do you feel that perspective has changed over time? I know that's a really huge question, and it does kind of take time, but was there maybe a moment for yourself when you started to see some light and things started to turn around, perhaps?
I think I went into rehab about 10 days after I was in ICU, and I was in rehab for 8 months. And I think almost once I kind of saw every day passing and seeing that things weren't really going to change, once I got to a certain point. But it was a really, really long road for me. I'd say, I've been injured now for 25 years, and I'd say it's really in the last 10 that I've done a lot of dramatic anti-ableist work within myself to realize what the views I've inherited from society, from family, from whoever. So I think it took a lot to recognize those views are not the truth.
Talking my language. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about that work that you've done, if you would.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. Well, I mean, if you want to spend an entire afternoon talking about this, then yeah. Okay, I'll try and
give me a glimpse of give me some of the idea, because I think the term internalized ableism is unfamiliar to some people, and it was unfamiliar for me for a long time. And actually, that starting to understand maybe what that means can be really, really useful for people. So give us a glimmer.
So, I suppose internalized ableism is like a lot of other isms that we internalize, like racism and sexism and homophobia. And it is, I see it as inherited beliefs passed down by generation to generation, and also connected to the media that we intake, what we feel is a quality of life, what isn't quality of life, how we see our bodies and perceive them, and how other people see our bodies and perceive them. And I think for me, I internalized but hadn't been able to articulate that I would not be of value or worth to society after becoming disabled. And not only to society, to myself, that I would just lose that sense. I lost any sense of self-worth, and realized that my self-worth had not really developed at the time that I'd had my accident. I hadn't had an incredible core of sense of self-worth. And I think what being disabled has taught me, especially again in the last 10 years, is that I am of value regardless of what I do, who I am, who I know, what I wear, what I look like, what I can and can't do. So to me, it's undoing the ideas of productivity, and that being the ultimate goal in life, in whatever way that manifests. And I think letting go of that and really developing that core helps me in times when I am feeling really like run down or I'm having health issues. I go, that's okay. That's all right. It's fine. My body's doing its thing. I'm getting on with it. It doesn't matter if I don't engage with whoever, if I don't post on social media. I'm awful at that anyway. But if I don't read, or if I'm not able to even have a conversation, which sometimes it can be for me, because I also have chronic fatigue. So it really is understanding that sense of value that's irrespective of time, people, place, that we are all of value just for existing.
Mm-hmm. You are talking my language, and it's so relevant for us all as humans. I think I so often come back to this in my mind. We often pin it on something, but actually it's a real universal thing for sure.
Yeah. And that's it, is like everyone has internalized ableism, whether you're disabled or not.
Yeah.
And I think that it's only going through this transition into being a disabled person that has highlighted that for me.
Yeah. Oh, I could go into so much more on this. I love it.
Oh, yeah, me too. I'm like, why don't we write a book instead, Sophie?
Totally. That's a conversation for next time. So I'm really curious. You are a filmmaker amongst different things, and I'm curious about your journey into that. Did you always, when you were 15 years old, what were you wanting to do, and did you always have that in mind?
Oh, yeah, great question. So before my accident, I wanted to be an actor. But I think if I had actually become an actor without being disabled, I would have just been insufferable, to be honest.
Why? Can I ask why?
I think if I hadn't become disabled, I would have been a lot more superficial and basing my want to be an actor in attention and approval, rather than being like, this is a craft that tells a story. So, okay, yeah, back to answering your question. So I wanted to be an actor. But when I became disabled again, I had a lot of feedback that I wasn't going to be cast in any roles. I didn't see any disabled people on screen or on TV. And so I kind of switched tack and went into fine art. And then I was I used to be a motivational speaker, which I really cringe at now because I think I was probably doing it from a place of a lot of internalized ableism and preaching kind of almost toxic positivity. Um, but that's also another story. Um, and I was doing this kind of speech, and someone said, "Hey, are you interested in being in film and TV?" And because we could get you a scholarship for this school that has opened up. Um, so I got a scholarship to go to film school in Vancouver. I went after I moved out of my house at my parents' place at 19. Went to film school and met my dear friend who is now my co-creator and co-writer. Um, and I am hers of We Might Regret This.
I loved it so much. It was real, and it was raw, and it was gritty, and it was so much of my life, my friends' lives, and it hadn't been seen. I hadn't seen it before. It was just it was beautiful. Big question: is there going to be a series 2?
Well, thank you so much for saying that, because I think to me, um, I, you know, me and Lee, my co-creator, and I were doing this for the disabled community and for people to feel less afraid of becoming disabled and to see that everyone has needs. It's not just a disabled person that does, but everyone does. So, yes, there is going to be a series 2. We have filmed it. We have edited.
Wow.
We have,
Okay.
yeah, it has been handed into the BBC. So we're just waiting for a transmission date. Sometime within the next, I would say, 6 months for sure, it'll be on.
Exciting. That's awesome.
Yeah. I suppose part of my journey as well. So I met Lee at film school, and then I kind of again switched tack because I went to film school and it was such an intense and rigorous process that I thought, oh, there's no way I can be in film and TV because I can't physically handle the intensity of what it would take to be in the industry, and in many ways I still can't. But after that, I didn't work in film and TV for another 10 years, and moved to Brighton from London. And then I started community screening events here, and they got a lot of interest. And I started becoming part of a BAFTA group called We Crip Film, which looks to kind of create more inclusion in the screen industries, but through did I say BAFTA? I meant BFI. Yeah, I was part of the BFI. Anyway, so I'm now part of the BFI and have a group of a group that I chair there called We Crip Film, and everything just kind of unfolded and has kind of flourished and become my life now.
Do you think that representation, in your experience, of people with disabilities in film and in the media is changing?
I think disabled people are more included in film for sure than they were film and TV than they were maybe 10 years ago. But I still I think there's a really long way to go.
Yeah. What do you think can be done to move that kind of forwards?
Oh my gosh. I think that people need to, from the film and TV industry, need to stop seeing disabled people as something that the industry isn't prepared for. Because actually, we can change, in the industry, you can make it rain, you can make it snow, you can change the weather, you can make worlds. So if you can do that, you can kind of make anything accessible. And I think it's just actually engaging that creative problem-solving brain, which most TV and film people have. I think it's just being more mindful and more inclusive.
Yeah. It's a big question, but a beautifully concise answer. Of course, there is a lot in the industry, isn't there? But obviously, there's so much power in the industry. How do you think that kind of storytelling and filmmaking can help change, perspectives and perceptions about disability?
I think the film and TV industry has a huge role in changing perspectives around disabled people and disability. I think that we kind of have a responsibility to almost counterbalance the awful representation of disabled people as either being tragic or inspirational. And I think that's what needs to be worked on now, is kind of counterbalancing the history of film and TV, not only in representing disabled people, but representing minorities in general.
Yeah, I love that. Makes a lot of sense. So we should talk about travel, because that is the theme of this podcast. It can feel really daunting to a lot of people with spinal cord injury, with disabilities. Tell me about your experience with travel since your injury, if you would, Kyla.
About a week before my accident, I'd had a detention because I hadn't tucked my shirt in at school. It was very naughty. And what I had to do for detention was essentially become a runner or assistant to one of the mums at school during the kind of annual fair that we had. And she and I ended up just being really naughty together, and she was fabulous. She's this woman called Denise who is full of chutzpah, spit and vinegar, whatever you'd like to term. She has just a vitality and an energy. And she's a nurse, and she's married to a doctor. When I had my accident, I had traveled a lot before my accident. When I had my accident, she came to visit me and my mom, and she said, "Why don't we make a trip to Jamaica happen?" Because she's Jamaican English. And we went, "Yeah, sure, okay." And they said, "We will do anything, but let's just make it happen." And so that was it. That my first time traveling after my accident was on a 2-week holiday in Jamaica with my my I don't know, idol now, Denise, and her husband and her son that I went to school with, and his friends. And we stayed found one of their family's homes in Jamaica, and it was incredible. It was incredible. It was it was just a life-changing trip in so many ways.
That's amazing. That's quite rare. Like, for a first experience, traveling so far as well, with an injury.
Yeah, I think it's because I was young and risk-taking.
Yeah. Got you.
And I think I went, yeah, absolutely. I have no idea how this is going to work, but we'll do it. Let's do it.
Speaks to your character big time, regardless of age, I think. Totally. Do you have an adventure? Do you have like a favorite trip or adventure that kind of stands out besides that since your injury?
I have so many. I have traveled to so many countries in Europe, to Central America, to North Africa, to there are other places I'm forgetting. I've traveled a lot, a lot. I used to travel a lot before. My family would always kind of this is so not safe, and I'm not recommending this for anyone. They chuck a mattress in the back of our van, and we'd just, drive as a family and camp and hike and drive to Florida, even though we lived in Ontario, and be away for the summers. My dad was a big sailor, so we sailed a lot. So yeah, I think, and I've done a lot of that still, not the mattress in the back of the van, but a lot of travel, I think. Yeah.
Obviously, particularly being a tetraplegic as well, there are things that you need to factor in, right? Have you?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, have you got some kind of top tips or hacks or whatever to share about with all of your experience around traveling as a disabled person?
So I suppose my biggest tips in terms of traveling is I have 24-hour care, so I have a personal assistant, so I need to travel with a personal assistant or someone who knows how to do my care. But to me, it's always like the more the merrier, because I think when I was younger and more foolish, I was able to be I was just like, yeah, piggyback me up here, drag the chair here, do this, that. Now I'm like, oh God, no, don't lift, don't touch me. No, that's not the case. But I think that just being clear with your communication in the entire journey is really good. I think there are so many times where you need to communicate with strangers um, to make sure you are accessing what you need. Um, so, for instance, I have to use an aisle chair to transfer into a, a plane on the seat, and I make sure that I'm always communicating as well as I can with the people who are transferring me into the aisle chair and then onto the seat, like what I need, what's comfortable for me. And I suppose that would be my biggest tip: is one, knowing your own needs; two, being able to communicate them; three, practically speaking, I think having a printout of like how your chair is either folds down or how it needs to be disengaged if it's a power chair. All of these things. Um, I know someone who did like a picture of each step because they were traveling to a country where English was not the widely spoken language. And so having pictures of the steps really helps. And then attaching that to your chair so that when you see it on the other side, hopefully it is respected as it deserves to be.
You're not the first person to make that recommendation on this series of the podcast. Obviously, a really
Wow.
valuable tip.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the other thing that I would recommend is just do what makes you feel supported. And I think sometimes traveling is really physically exhausting. So I think the other piece of advice I would say is that if you're going away for a week and you need to spend 3 of those days in bed, or, half of it ends up being time that needs to be taking care of your body, be okay with that. Just be okay with that.
Love
That's
that.
fine, you know?
It's great advice. It's really great advice. I wonder, what would you say to someone listening who perhaps is more newly injured and has heard all of the terrible fear-mongering stories about traveling by plane or traveling full stop and doesn't want to do it? They've been injured for a couple of years. What would you say to them directly?
I would say if you tap into your resilience and want for joy, engagement, connection, culture, then go for it. The highs will always be the highs, the lows will always be the lows, regardless of what country you're in.
And they say, but, my wheelchair's going to get damaged, or, I'm not going to be able to, I don't know, access a toilet or whatever. What do I do, if everything's kind of going wrong?
I mean, things can inevitably go wrong. The amount of times that, things have gone wrong for me, but I think that's where tapping into the resilience happens. You just have to be as prepared as you can be before you go, and and then leave it up to fate.
I think what you've said is really valuable about actually things probably will go wrong, and it's kind of having that expectation that, I know for me on the trip that I did kind of earlier in the years, I took a lot of flights over, 4 months, and I knew that something was going to go wrong, probability, it is going to happen. As it turned out, it actually didn't. It was kind of miraculous. But yeah, having that kind of preparing for something to go wrong.
Yeah. For instance, like my power chair is quite like modular. So a lot of it can just be fixed by Allen keys. So I always travel with Allen keys in my carry-on, which really confuses the security guards. They often think like, what are you doing with, tools, what? But I keep my Allen keys in my carry-on so that if I get to the gate and I see that my chair is wobbly or in a bit of pieces, the Allen keys are with me right there. I don't have to wait till I get my baggage back or whatever. So that's one thing that I do in preparation of that. I always prepare for things if my bag was to go missing. What's the essential things that I can put in my carry-on? I think just knowing what you're going into in preparation, in terms of like look up where the accessible loos are to the area that you're going to be in. See if there are any blogs out there, because I think so many times I've been saved by disabled people who have written blogs about traveling in Naples, and they have an accessible taxi service there. And so I think it's really like pulling on those resources and being as prepared as possible.
Yeah, big time. We are lucky with the internet, it must be said.
It is. That is a good,
So before we finish off, got a few more questions to kind of round things up. I'm curious as to your answer for this one. If you could go back and tell your newly injured self one thing, what would it be?
I think it's what the doctor didn't say to me, which was, your life may not be what you think it was going to be, but it's going to be magnificent.
So to finish off, finally, what's your advice for living well with spinal cord injury for those listening?
Community. I wouldn't be who I am or where I am without the other wonderful disabled people in my life. I think I was afraid to begin with of making friends with disabled people because I had that internalized ableism. That was at the very beginning of my injury, even though the people that were at rehab that when I went to rehab, I became very close to them. I think I was afraid of being seen as disabled, even though I so clearly am. And so I didn't have any friends that were disabled. And I think community has really taught me so much and taken so much care of me. And I think it's just one of the most beautiful things about being disabled is I wouldn't have had that community if I wasn't.
I'm with you. I'm so with you. I think my answer would be the same. It's about actually kind of connecting with peers, and it's powerful stuff for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kyla. I have loved this conversation and know that people listening will have got a huge amount out of it. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sophie. It was so great to connect again, and thank you for the wonderful questions. And I can't wait to have our behind the scenes conversation after this.